have like white hair that's just sticking up and it's not going down.
Lick your finger and then push it back.
Go like this.
Yeah. Ew, that was so gross.
Yes, you did that.
Why was that so wet? And like I heard the noise. Like, I'm like, what the?
It did not work. Ugh, jeez.
You know what you need?
What?
Vaseline.
It crossed my mind, I'm not gonna lie.
Welcome to the Technically Diverse Podcast, featuring the Quadcast crew.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Technically Diverse Podcast. I am your host, Jordan. Joining me as always are the members of the Quadcast crew. Our resident adrenaline junkie and our co-host is Ruby, aka Amsako.
Hey everyone.
Behind the scenes and working his magic is Uncle Mike. Remember, if it ain't Mike, it ain't right.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And keeping us in line and doling out law and order is our producer, Peaches, aka Roz.
Hey.
Beautiful. So kicking off today, episode number 5 of the Technically Diverse Podcast. I am so happy to be here. We've got some exciting banter lined up. It's been a couple of weeks since the Capitol terrorist attack, and yes, it was a terrorist attack. So we're going to be covering that today. We'll be speaking about the inauguration and implications of that, and the turn that America is going to take. And then, as always, we'll be having some really playful banter where we'll, talk about presenting yourself authentically and so on and so forth. After seeing what happened in Washington, I strongly believe that what took place was a terrorist attack. How do you guys feel about that? Would you say that it's a terrorist attack?
I agree. I think that was definitely a terrorist attack on the Constitution and a government site. But I think we need to understand a little bit better, what actually happened, so we can tell our audience. Roz, do you want to kind of give everybody a background into what kind of incited and led to what we all witnessed, that essentially terrorist attack?
Yeah, for sure. So as everyone remembers, in November, there was the US election, and turns out that Trump did not win. Unfortunately, Trump is the only person that does not. Well, fortunately, Trump thinks that he did win. And so he has been doing his utmost best to overturn the election results. And he's constantly been telling his supporters that he, in fact, did win, and that the people, whoever it is are trying to steal the election from him. So a couple weeks ago now, they're supposed to officially announce that Joe Biden has won the presidency. Trump told his supporters that Joe Biden did not win. This is an attack on democracy. This is an attack on the Constitution, et cetera, whole bunch of drama. And so now when they're supposed to actually be officiating the election results, Trump supporters stormed the Capitol with all of the lawmakers and government officials inside of the Capitol. They broke down windows and doors. They attacked the people, security guards, and everyone that was inside. Thankfully, none of the officials were actually injured. They were able to be escorted safely into a safe room or something. And then what happened, as you can see online, there's pictures of different rioters and terrorists inside of the Capitol taking photos, taking items back with them. There's that picture with that guy who took the podium or something, and he's telling on Kijiji. There's a whole bunch of insanity, to be honest. And then there's some of the supporters that were outside, and they were mad that people were destroying the Capitol. And when asked, what would you prefer to happen? They said that we want to see those people on gallows outside. We they want to see Nancy Pelosi being hung outside. They care about things like that, but they don't actually want the building, the property itself, to be destroyed.
It really makes you think. A lot of the people, we've seen tons of footage, it was really heavily covered in the media. I couldn't help but notice that a lot of those protesters don't look like me. They don't look like us, So it really makes you think, what would have happened had those people kind of looked like us, because we saw the results. We saw before in the weeks of Black Lives Matter protests, what the response was, armed National Guard on Capitol property, on U.S. federal property. It scares me to think what that might have looked like.
So, like, one of the things that I noticed too in all of the videos that I was watching is that the police sometimes and like guards and whoever it was, they were just like standing there in half of the videos. Other ones literally were helping them get inside. All of these things are like absolutely insane. And when you look at it, it's some people probably know each other. They empathize with each other because a lot of the guards were white, and basically all of the rioters and terrorists were also white. I don't know. What do you think, Ruby?
So the interesting thing is what they were labeled. So when we talk about, if, from my perspective, if my community, a bunch of brown people were to do anything like that, relatively at 5% of the scale of what was done, immediately labeled as a terrorist. And when you look at what happened during the Black Lives Matter protests, it was like these angry Black people. What I saw happening during those riots was a bunch of angry, misinformed white people that just had nothing better to do than to just create chaos for the sake of creating chaos. And then just having Trump say, let's all go to the Capitol, I'm going there with you. And all those people just marched to the Capitol, and what, he probably got into his helicopter and went back to the White House.
He went inside. He's like, I'm gonna be over there with you. Let's go over there. And then he went inside of the White House and chilled out. Probably had a Diet Coke with a Big Mac. That's insane.
And you can even see videos with like him or like his son or whatever, like excited that people that their supporters were storming.
And then what?
His boy Giuliani. Oh, let's have trial by combat. Like, what year is it, fam? Like, you guys are trying to say that you're standing up for democracy and that you're these patriots, and then when a democratic election takes place, you're gonna tear up the place. That's the very opposite of democracy. That's a coup. What?
The question: What do you think would have happened if it was people of color? Like, what do you think the reaction would be today?
I know Mike is really hot on this one, so I'm
there definitely would have been a lot more shooting, right? So, guns blazing.
Shooting from who? Shooting
from the peace officers, right? That, I think there would have been a lot more shooting with that, because even if you look back at, some of the things that happened on June 2nd with a BLM protest or gathering that they had, there was a lot more force that was put in during that time. So if you look online, you can see, some of the guards or the National Reserve or whoever it was, those peace officers, and I'm putting peace in quotes. You see them, trying to, take control of the crowd, and it was much more forceful than what you would see at the Capitol building. Mind you, at the Capitol building, I think it was much worse because there was more people, right? Making that mob, that big mob, much more dangerous, right? Yes, lives were lost, and you don't want any lives being lost at all in any sense if it's avoidable. But the way that they did it, and even afterwards, the reactions of everything, not even calling it a terrorist group. To me, I'm looking at everything from the outside. We're here looking from Canada, looking from the outside on either one, and just seeing how everything is handled. It's pardon the pun, black and white, right? So that's what it is. So.
And you know what also comes to mind is like law and order. Like there has to be, law and order, meaning if you commit a crime, you get the punishment that fits that crime. And it just feels like when you're looking at the riots and you see police officers taking selfies with people that have broken down the doors, not barricades, there's no barricades, just breaking down the doors and going in. Officers are taking selfies. They're just straggling about like, oh, don't know what's going on here. They stole people that stole. They stole government property. One of those ladies, one of those terrorists took Nancy Pelosi's laptop and tried to sell it to Russia. That's a big.
Pretty much treason, no? Like, I don't think
That's treason.
U.S. government property and sell it to a foreign entity.
In
I'm pretty sure you should go to jail for a really long time. That's just me,
you would think. You're pretty sure it would go to jail for a very long time, but they're out on bail, staying at home with their mom and dad or whatever, wherever they are. It begs to, like, it makes you think, like, what is law and order? Is law and order only in place to punish those people of color for doing minor crimes? Like, when you look at the amount of people of color in jails for petty theft or things like that. But this is like a grand scale level where they need to be charged with treason and terrorism. Like, it doesn't add up when you look at what law and order should be.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, because I saw something on Twitter that contrasts between those punishments. And Khalif Bowder, if you guys remember that story, he stole a backpack at 16. He spent 3 years in jail at Rikers Island, and they never proved that he stole any such backpack. And then he ultimately committed suicide after being in jail for 3 years and not getting a trial and never really being told what he was in jail for. But then that same lady that stole the laptop, her name is Riley Williams, and she got released to her mom. So if anything, it really demonstrates that there are two very distinct systems of justice in the United States. And it's appalling to see that. And it's appalling when you see the difference of the way the media covers it and the way it's spoken about. It's domestic terrorism. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
And then what is precedent? The way you proceed any criminal hearing or trial is based on precedent. Like, what was the finding in the previous similar crime that you set the tone to give the punishment? So it just seems like the precedent has been established, and we've seen this happen, but this has come to the forefront where society, the government has blatantly just said white people don't have the same level of precedent in law as people of color. It just, precedent to me, insanity.
That's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. So guys, let's take a quick break and get some coffee, get some tea, and we'll come back and let's talk some more about how the media plays a role in all of this and framing these things. So welcome back from break. We're gonna talk a little bit more about media and expand on that. So Mike, I have a question. Do corporations control speech and influence?
Speech and influence. So what I gather is you're talking about Donald Trump being kicked off of social media, right? So
bingo.
Yes. So that what's has happened there is, he has put out these tweets or certain terms out there that he wanted to get out, and people followed them, and because of that, he got kicked off of social media. In my opinion, there is an end user agreement that people agree to when they sign up. And if you don't follow this end user agreement, then you are breaking the terms of that agreement. So you get kicked off. It's not that the corporations are controlling your speech, right? You can go out somewhere else and do your speech, but if you are not following the terms of the agreement that you have, then yeah, you can't use that product. Like they have their terms, they have their reasons why they kick you off, and it's not just because they're shutting him up, right? There's a reason why.
And I'd say especially so when, it can be dangerous to people's lives, right? Like, if you're blatantly saying statements that aren't true and it's inciting people to take actions, and those actions could be violent, then I think some of these social media companies do have to step in to kind of not police that, but stop that from happening on their platforms. And I've seen a lot of the flames of, you know, this divisiveness being stoked by media corporations as well, and, you know, media entities, and people will always, you know, look to Fox News for that because they always seem to have an alternate view of what was going on. And, you know, while these things were happening, I made sure to tune in, not only to what they would say left wing, like maybe CNN, but also to see what was going on Fox. So Ruby, could you kind of like expand on, you know, Fox News and misinformation? Because I know that you had some feelings towards that as well.
Yeah, like, I think if you want to have a comical break in the middle of chaos, you tune into Fox. Because it just blows my mind and how they articulate what is happening real time. And it's like, are you seeing the same things where the rest of the world is seeing? Like, I just want to read a couple of things that one of the anchors, I don't know his first name, Carlson.
Oh, Tucker.
Tucker Carlson. So this is what he says. Like, he uses terms like, you know, those rioters, well, he didn't say rioters. He's like, they've expressed sympathy for many of the deeply frustrated Trump supporters. And he says things like, kind of solid Americans. People in Washington really need to understand why they're aggrieved, and if they'll emphasize, and it will need to emphasize with their frustrations. Are you kidding me? Like, you just kind of said, hey, these guys are just like really upset. We need to be there for them because they're upset. How can we support them because they're upset? They're terrorists and they just attacked the Capitol. Deliver the news, say the facts. The fact was that they rushed the Capitol and attempted to bring it down through violence and any means necessary without having any police force or even they didn't even call in the guard till like 3-4 hours later. So it just makes me think of, you know, during, again, Black Lives Matter, like how the narrative was so biased to be like these angry Black people, like what it just, they need to move on, and like they're taking up the streets, they're painting the streets.
They're rioters. Oh my God,
yeah.
they're destroying our country.
And then you add also, you know, when we go back to the social media and the social media bit, Ivanka Trump tweets that these patriots are showing their feelings, and then she immediately had to delete it because they're not patriots, they're terrorists. And then, you know, to Mike, to your point, and I think Washington Post put this article up, 73% a decline of misinformation that was spread after they banned Trump. So imagine 73%, like that's insanity. Like, I don't know what to say. Just Fox just upsets me. But like I said, like comical, like back in the day, maybe like Married with Children. That was one show that was probably good. Fox.
Yeah, the misinformation was stopped by 73%, as you said, and then you know, they had their own type of media. Or hold on, let's do that again because I didn't. I was trying to go into Parlor, but I couldn't.
It's okay. My camera.
Social network.
Yeah. Huh?
Social network.
Yeah. Social network. That was the word I'm. You know, I must say I like how Roz, you know, guides people through this whole thing. That was good.
Sorry, well, one thing I forgot to say. This was one I missed. So right now on Fox, the commentators are ruthlessly mocking people for pointing out that the Black Lives Matters uprising were mostly peaceful. But now they're talking about how MAGA March was mostly peaceful. Like, are they blind?
Well, you know what? It might have been.
What part of that was peaceful?
It might have been. We might have only seen the really bad parts, right? So just like how the
really bad parts are the ones that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, but what I'm saying is, so if we look at it on both sides, right?
I don't want to look on it both sides.
Just trying to play devil's advocate.
Sorry, go on. So yeah, it's very important, Mike. I would like to get the other side.
Yeah, you know, but you know, you do look at it on the other side. It could have been mostly.
Yeah, tell me when those thugs thugs.
Hey
if
man,
it
I
was
don't know.
black
I'm
people.
just putting it out there 'cause I don't really know. I'm just I didn't see any good out of it either.
No, I completely get what you're saying, Mike. There's always two sides to a story, three
Three.
sides to a
Yeah.
story, right? Two perspectives and the truth. So,
Yeah.
but go on. I have we all have a lot to say about this, but I want to continue with your thoughts.
Yeah. Social media. Let's talk about Parlor.
Oh, my favorite topic.
Jordan, I know you have some deep thoughts on Parlor and some good information about that. So why don't you explain what Parlor is, what's happened, and we'll take our discussion from there.
Okay, so Parler is a social media application that was created as a haven because a lot of people that support Trump and right wing and are really about violence, they were being basically kicked off of other mainstream social media platforms because of hate speech and because of the promotion of violence. So after they got kicked off of Facebook, Instagram, and more importantly, Reddit, where there was a giant community of these people that supported Trump and supported lashing out at minorities, and anyone in general that didn't really gel with what they believed in. They basically got kicked off all these platforms, and they all flooded to this right-wing social media platform called Parler. So everything was fine and dandy with Parler. They were there doing their thing, spewing hate, but they weren't that technically inclined, the creators of Parler, and they made some pretty critical errors, like not securing the API plugins for it. And it allowed, one ingenious hacker or hacktivist to copy all the information that was part of Parler. So through copying all that information, they were basically able to identify people that went to the Capitol insurrection. And this hacktivist was able to take all the information and use open source facial recognition technology to cross-reference it with people that were at the Capitol protests. And as a result, you're seeing more FBI and law enforcement arrests. And what I think is pretty neat about it is that all this information that these people submitted is now being used to get them. So, you think that you're slick and that you can put on masks and you can damage property and get away from it scot-free, but now they're being caught up with. And I think it kind of speaks to privilege as well, and specifically white privilege, because a lot of the people that were at the Capitol, damaging stuff, are being booked, and we're coming to find out that there are people in societies like police officers, teachers, college professors, and it's really eye-opening when you kind of see what positions these people have in society and the level of how misinformation can really seep in and cause people to do really terrible things.
Amazing. It's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't Parler get shut down as well?
Yeah. So Parler did get shut down. It was being hosted from some major cloud providers, but they did shut them down. For a little while, they were actually being hosted by a company based out of Montreal. So I know that was a little controversial, but since that affiliation was kind of uncovered, that company has moved away from Parler. But what's really interesting and what I found out yesterday, as a matter of fact, is Parler is now being hosted in Russia. And the people that are hosting it apparently have ties to the Russian government. So we're going to continue to see how this develops. It seems that Parler is still up and running and thriving and now being supported by this Russian entity. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this kind of develops, because now if the ties to the government, to the Russian government, that is, are true, it'll open up this whole new paradigm, because now you have a foreign entity hosting a platform that really can stoke domestic issues in another country. And that's really interesting. It's almost the reverse of when you see Facebook and other platforms being used overseas. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I know that we've spoken a lot about the media. Let's take another quick break and let's talk about the inauguration, because it was a pretty joyous event. A lot of people were looking forward to it, and we'll go from there. Welcome back. Let's talk a little bit about the inauguration, because I was super excited to see it go down. I thought it was funny leading up to it how quiet Trump got, because like he's so used to seeing him tweet or be in the media, but it's like he kind of sunk back into his cave and slinked away out of the White House back to Florida, and I thought that was funny. And it was funny just to see how much of a sore loser like he was too, because you lost, bud, just concede. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, other presidents have lost, presidents that were way greater than you. And it's funny when you kind of view someone's ego and it just won't allow them to just stop and just say they lost. Like, there's nothing wrong in that. And Uncle Mike, I know that, in another one of your other lives where you put on another superhero cape, that you coach kids and, you teach them how to win and how to lose. And, and some of us, we've been in sales and, we lose deals and stuff too. So Mike, what are your thoughts on winning and losing and that?
So winning and losing is just life, right? You look at it as life, and the way that you come off from losing or hitting a hard time kind of defines you as a person. So what we've seen now over the last 5 years, actually even further than that. So if you look back at some of the things that Trump has been through, he always has somebody else to blame. And this time he's blaming the public. He's blaming, rigged voting. Losing
voting machines.
Yeah, voting machines. Right? Losing and being a good loser or taking it like an adult, then that's one thing. And I don't know, myself, I did not vote for him. Obviously, I'm not American, even though if I was, I wouldn't have. But I don't know how a person can get to such a high position, an elected position, where it's time to relinquish that power, and you have all this turmoil in not saying, I'm not going to concede, I'm not going to go to the inauguration. So many things that so many other presidents have done just to have that graceful transition of peace that you're not getting. That's all I have to say. But Roz, I'd really like to get your genius brainwaves on this one.
Happy to grace you with it. So one of the things that when you said looking at how past presidents have like conceded, it reminded me, like, in the past in the US, the president that lost or is transitioning usually actually gives the new president a ride to their inauguration, right? They give them a ride and then they welcome them on like the White House steps, and like they like bring them in, like, hey, welcome to your new home. Yeah, like this is how it looks. This is where you want to be. They usually do that, but Trump just skipped out on all of it. And there's quite a few traditions that he just like completely ignored for some reason, for pettiness. And but one of the things that he did actually do was leave a letter for Biden. Now,
Biden, he did that.
Yeah. So Biden hasn't said what's in it. He said that it's very private and he's going to wait until he can talk to Trump before he announces what was in it. But in the past, the letters have been like we're rooting for you. Your success is all of our success as presidents. Barack's for Donald Trump's was basically telling him what democracy is and how it works, and that you should try to do really good at be really good at this. And like, we're all just temporary occupants of this office. Make sure that you leave it better than how you got it. Clearly, I don't know if Trump read it and he was like, well, screw that. I'm not going to do any of that just out of spite. But clearly, like, he didn't follow any of Barack's advice. But Trump did leave a letter. We'll see if it just said, like, I won by a lot in a while.
I'm really, really, really like good. Ruby, I know that you're itching to jump in on this one.
So like, just off the bat, you said that, Trump went quiet. Like, he went quiet because his platforms were made quiet. Like, he was probably trying to, get on Melania's Twitter feed to like say a few words, but she was like, probably like, nah, I'm not about that.
Did you see how happy she was when she walked off the airplane and she was like smiling because she's
that was
going
she was like,
away?
I'm done. Like
I've never seen her smile that big before. It was crazy. I'm like, you can smile, like your facial muscles can like
doesn't break.
I was like, how? I thought she was an android. I legit thought she was an android. Sorry to cut you off, Ruby.
It's all good. Roz, sorry, what were you gonna say? What was your favorite?
Oh, my favorite part of watching them leave was like when there was like a photo op opportunity before they had to get into the car. She looked at the cameras and she just continued walking. And she was
When
like
she got to
so
Florida?
over it.
Yeah.
Trump's like standing there taking pictures and she's like taking steps and in the car, like, bye.
Done. Yeah.
So going back to the sore loser, like nobody should be shocked by the fact that that's how he was gonna behave, but I think everybody was hoping that he would just for one time be the better man, just this one time, because it's such a significant transition of power and it's so symbolic that when you see a country so divided, it would lend to bringing unity and a little bit more peace in these times when there's COVID and economic turmoil. But he just couldn't. He just could not do that. But that's the type of individual he is, right? And when we look at other presidents and how they've, from a Republican to a Democratic Party, the transition, it's been seamless in the sense they understood that regardless of the party that they are, that this is democracy. They were chosen by the people. So the transition needs to happen. And I don't know, like I just think that a lot of what happened that day was very symbolic. What the Republican, like if you see the Republican president, former president, which was Bush, for him to have presence there really I thought was powerful, because you're looking at a divided party, a divided people, and divided country. Him representing himself there kind of says, this is what we stand for. We stand for the democracy. And I'm going to get a little bit into what I liked about the inauguration, because I feel like we don't need to focus on Trump anymore.
Yeah.
Trump
we can definitely move on.
Yeah, Trump, like we all know who he was, and the only thing I'll add to that is, Trump was the visual, but there's a whole narrative and people behind him, and I think that's a deeper conversation.
Oh yeah.
And we'll save that for another day, but I think let's focus on like the good things we saw in the inauguration.
Can we just talk about Amanda Gorman and her jacket, because that yellow coat was fire.
I thought the whole inauguration was a rainbow of beautiful colors that all the ladies brought their A game to. I didn't notice any of the men really.
What about that guy Bernie though? You didn't see his fit?
Oh man,
like, this is the biggest meme right now.
The cool thing about his meme, he created a sweatshirt that he's now selling to raise money for one of his charities. Which
I heard it sold out like crazy fast too.
Oh, it's amazing.
Great, that's good.
One of my favorite thing about Bernie's outfit, beyond him just actually being dressed for the weather, his mittens, they were actually made by like someone else that gave it to him, and they're made from like old sweaters or something like that, and like this lady like actually sells that. They're super sustainable, and they were given to him like over a year or a few years ago, and like he still wears them, and now her Etsy store has just blown up, and it's amazing for me to see someone actually be living sustainably instead of just like always getting something new for every single event there is, just because, right?
And what I thought was kind of dope about Bernie is that he kind of showed, like, I thought it was cool because like I don't really like going out in the wintertime. I'm not one of these outdoor sports like wintertime. I'm more so let's stay by the fire and keep nice and toasty. But if you look at Bernie's hands in the gloves, he actually like pulled his fingers out and had his hands in fists, and like that was a move we used to do back in the schoolyard. So anytime that I'm outside and my fingers get cold, because if my hands get cold, I'm done. But it was dope to see Bernie. He does it the same way too.
So Jordan, you brought up like I don't want to go away from Bernie because he's just so cool, but I do want to go back to Amanda. Like you brought up her yellow coat, which is amazing, but her delivery of her inauguration poem like was amazing. Like she has blown up and amazing opportunities are come her way. And the other thing that I really loved about how the individuals that they incorporated in the inauguration was the police officer from the Capitol. His name was Eugene Goodman. So he's the individual that diverted the mob away from where the senators were, and he got to be security for Kamala Harris on the day of the inauguration, which I thought was so cool. How they incorporated how all these positive elements to bring together this unified symbolic message of coming together. So I don't know, that's what I thought was cool about those individuals. But definitely the fashion was the highlight of the inauguration.
I feel like whenever Michelle Obama gets into the mix, there's going to be some fashion, and that's going to take over. So I love the trend that we're on right now. So let's talk more about presenting yourself authentically, and we can talk about fashion and all that in the next segment, because I need to get another cup of coffee.
You drink a lot.
So moving into our next segment, let's talk about presenting yourself authentically, because I feel like, what are some steps towards doing that? And one of the cool things we saw from the inauguration with the different fashion trends, we saw people breaking out of their norms and some things that I wouldn't normally expect to see. Like, for instance, Joe Biden's granddaughter was wearing like Air Jordan 1s, and I believe because she was wearing those shoes that there was a spike in the price of them now. So they're now going for like $1,500 online, and they're quite the hot ticket item. I know, Ruby, you were dialed into the fashion. I think you're our fashion correspondent for the inauguration. So why don't you elaborate on some of the trends that you were seeing?
Well, when we think about authentically representing yourself, like, this is where I tie this in. So you see people being comfortable wearing, when you look at Kamala Harris's niece's husband, he would, like, what else blew up other than Joe Biden's granddaughter's shoes was his shoes, which were Dior Air Jordans, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh my God, who's this guy like wearing these shoes, kind of thing. But what made me think about that, like what the thought process was, is when we think about how we need to be in the office or present ourselves, dressing with our shoes and putting on like a crisp t-shirt and like the whole representation of what professional looks like. And then also, like, we had conversations around, this year where this is where I had more awareness around when Black females come into the workspace, how they have to have their hair and how they're judged or spoken to, because where their natural hair is considered unprofessional, or even what men are, with dreadlocks, it's considered unprofessional. So is this now a movement that's going to allow for everybody to feel they're allowed to be their authentic selves without being judged for looking messy or not professional? So yeah, Jordan.
I want to jump in and make something perfectly clear about my intentions on the whole Black women and their hair in the workplace and that whole conversation. I really want people to know that I'm going to be an advocate for making sure that that sort of thing is not commonplace, because I think it is absolutely ridiculous to tell a Black woman that the natural way that she wears her hair is in any way unprofessional. That is systemic racism. It's so blatant. So I want to say to all my sisters out there, I am one of a crusader that will be speaking loudly against those practices. Not to say that other members of the Quadcast crew aren't going to, but I want you to know that I think that is completely ridiculous, and that my support is definitely behind that, because it's so offensive, and it just utterly makes me sick.
There's one thing I wanted to add to that. My wife actually kept her hair natural because of our daughter. She wanted to make sure that she could set an example that if she has natural hair, she's still a beautiful woman. So she's kept her hair natural. It's been a long time now. My daughter's actually 15 years old now. My wife has dreadlocks as well. My son used to have dreadlocks, but he's cut it off and kind of go that style that the kids you do now. But she's kept it natural for years, and it wasn't forced. Of course, she likes what she's doing, but she's helping her daughter and help with that self-esteem for everyone. And it's something that I didn't have to get used to it because it's what I seen all the time. But I'm it's something that I'm proud that she consciously did, and and she works in a professional environment too.
Mike, we'd be remiss if we didn't get some input from Roz here, because she's got the most lovely natural black hair on the pod. It's certainly better than mine. And Mike, your hair isn't exactly the longest.
It's on my chin.
Yeah. Yeah. So Roz, I'd love to hear your commentary on this, because we've worked in a professional setting with you, and I've seen your natural hair, and I know that, I've heard comments being made to you about your hair and stuff. So I want to hear about that, because
yeah. So for me, there's quite a few things like within this, like in terms of the inauguration and seeing people being able to wear the shoes and the outfits and like be themselves in such a professional and such like a public setting. It is really, really amazing, because it allows you to then wear the outfits that you want to wear, because people are seeing it, and they're seeing it worn by people that are professionals, that are well respected, and it goes back and it allows us to do the same. In terms of natural hair and like Black women and hairstyles and everything like that, I have had quite the journey. When I started working with you all, I straightened my hair because I wanted to look professional, and it was my first corporate job. And so I went online and like I looked like corporate outfits, corporate shoes, corporate bags, corporate hairstyles. And all of the hairstyles that I saw, I didn't make this connection until like this summer, but all the hairstyles that I saw were white people with straight hair. And so that like just subconsciously told me that my hair needed to be straight in order for me to look professional at this corporation and like in an office setting in general. And so I straightened my hair, and I personally don't really love having straight hair. Like I'm okay with it. It's my hair, but I don't really love it. And then I decided like I was just over it after like a year or so of having to put like all these chemicals into my hair, having to go to the hairdresser every couple of weeks to make sure that it was like kept and not going to break off. And I gave up, and I was like totally over it. And I cut my hair like off to like where there was like probably like an inch or two left. And then when I was doing that, there were so many microaggressions and micro comments about all of it that I started making sure. I used to always dress professionally at work, of course, but I started making sure that I was then always extra professional. There was never like, if I was wearing jeans, I was wearing like a really nice blouse and heels. Like there was no point ever where someone could have said that Roslyn didn't look professional beyond just thinking that my hair being short and natural was unprofessional. And then within all of that, my hair starts growing out and everything. And then I'm interviewing for promotions. And then whenever I have an interview coming up, everyone's always like, oh yeah, make sure you straighten your hair for the interview, or make sure that your hair is back so it looks professional. And then there's always all of those little things. And it's like, I'm a professional. My hair, no matter what it looks like, is going to be professional. And now I've made an absolute point to always tell people that, because the hair that grows out of my head has no bearing as to how professional I am, as long as I myself am a professional. And so, yes, there is all of that. Hair is a whole entire other topic that I think we need to explore some more.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to.
But for me, after seeing people like celebrities on like red carpets and stuff with their natural hair, that was a big thing for me. Like, oh yeah, I can totally do this. And so seeing people wearing Jordans and people wearing colorful clothing and being able to be themselves is just such an amazing thing, I think, and it allows people to do that for themselves.
You said something too that I think gets glossed over. You mentioned that you had to spend time and money to straighten your hair. And that's something that if somebody has naturally straight hair, they probably don't have to do. So think about, like, I think about all those extra times that maybe you had to stay up late or inconvenience yourself or add additional stress in your life to conform to something that's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. Like my wash day was even longer than it is right now because it would also involve having to blow dry it and straighten it on top of everything else that I already do.
And I don't think that people that aren't Black really are taken to the fact, like you mentioned, that you have to put chemicals in your hair to get it to be that texture. And, those might not be potentially good for you down the line. Like I know my mother and some of my aunts, they stopped straightening their hair just because of that. They didn't want to keep subjecting their hair and their body to those chemicals. And, Chris Rock in his, documentary years ago, Good Hair, covered that exactly, and how, using those straightening products can be painful almost. So
yeah, like they are chemicals that legit burn your scalp, right? And they straighten the hair by getting rid of some of the layers that make it curly or kinky or coily or whatever texture it is. But of course, anyone can do whatever they want. That's the biggest thing. Like if you prefer to have your hair straight, then you totally can do that, right? But I didn't prefer to do that. I prefer to have my hair. My hair is like it's a 4B 4C pattern. If anyone knows what that is, it's like kinky and coily, and so I like it. I have a big head, and my head looks even bigger when my hair is out and big.
Gigantic, Roz. If anybody that knows Roz knows that she's got an oversized brain, so her skull compensates to continue.
Oh, great. Thanks, Jordan.
Ruby, I know that you wanted to chime in here, so we'll give you a chance to jump in.
It's a backwards humble brag, really.
You didn't even say it. Thanks, Jordan.
No, Roz has got the DL.
It's the big head thing. That's what it was. Yeah. Sorry, Ruby, you continue.
No, and I think that's exactly it. Like we're able to start thinking about this and questioning that and allowing for future generations to start being comfortable. What I thought, like Roz, you talked about, and Jordan, you mentioned this, the colors. And the interesting thing about the colors, I thought when I was looking into it is, I don't know if you noticed, all the first ladies and Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, wore purple. So the color purple, and it also makes me think of Oprah, another fierce
That's immediately
woman.
what I thought of when you said that.
Yeah, the color purple, it's a combination of red and blue. So red and blue are the two parties in the US. So when we're going off a theme, and when they probably try to go off a theme of unity, having, like, imagine being, I wonder if they use Signal or WhatsApp or Telegram to get all the ladies like, hey girls, what are you gonna wear? Let's all get let's sync up and let's all wear purple, right? Like imagine that conversation. That's a whole other level of cool. But I thought that was just, everybody's talk. If you didn't notice it, you should notice and go back and be like, whoa, like Hillary Clinton, Laura Bush, and Michelle Obama, like killed it, like without a doubt.
Hillary Clinton was there? I didn't even notice her.
You
She's wearing purple.
I did.
They were all there.
You said that, I didn't even clue in. I don't even remember seeing her. That's crazy.
Yeah, she was there. Clinton, the Bushes.
Was Bill Clinton there too?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally missed them. I didn't see them at all. Now that you said that. Yeah.
Did you see the wreath ceremony?
No, I don't think I watched. No, I don't think I watched that part. To be honest, I don't. I saw when Amanda Gorman went. I saw when Kamala swore in, and I saw when Joe swore in. But I don't think I didn't watch it all in its entirety. So maybe that's why.
Yeah. So sorry, Jordan, to cut you off, but I just thought that was really cool, and you know what, just having this whole conversation, what I just thought about, we didn't even talk about the significance of Vice President Kamala Harris. Being a woman of color, of Black and Indian descent, what that meant for boys and girls around the world, to have that woman stand up, being at the highest power, taking in the oath. And it just, I did not expect to get emotional on it, but it couldn't escape how powerful that moment was. So it was nice to see a fresh new rainbow of of those collaborative, united front. Yeah, Roz, sorry, what were you going to say?
Representation is everything, right? That's inspiring for women in general. It's inspiring for Black people. It's inspiring for South Asian people, or Indian people. It's inspiring for so many people to be able to actually see someone like us as a leader, right? Like we see it in other countries all over the world, amazing women that are leading countries, but you don't see it as much in North America, right? And a lot of the time, there's so much negativity associated with women leading. Like, oh, women are so emotional. There will be a ton of petty wars. But like, you don't see that actually happening when women are leading. and so I do hope that this is another thing that shows people women can be leaders, be it of a country or organization. Like as executives, there's so many times that women are overlooked for roles and for things that they can do with their careers in general. If you just, it's kind of off topic a little bit, but a lot of the jobs that were lost this year were women's jobs, right? Women are the people that stepped down to take care of the household, watch their kids when they couldn't go to school and homeschool them. These women are like, a lot of the progress that was made towards job equality and equity is being lost last year and this year because of the coronavirus and the pandemic. So this is hopefully going to help us further.
I just think you cannot label women emotional or petty anymore after seeing Trump. He was a definition of emotional and petty. So I don't think any woman should ever be labeled that.
I think it's also fun too, because like you look at Germany, Angela Merkel has been the chancellor there for years, and Germany's had like the top economy. They've been so progressive. They took in the most amount of refugees from like places in the Mediterranean and Africa. So it's just straight FUD. And I think it has to more so do with our poor North American values in getting women into position of power, because and people of color, in that same strain, like it really is a reckoning, and I'm happy to definitely see it too.
So Mike, around those shoes, is your son going to be grabbing some of those?
I'm sure he's going to be grabbing a lot of different pairs of shoes. He sells anything in any type. So,
I think Mike, I think it's a good time for us to announce our first sponsor. We are sponsored by Aiden Steels. So if you want to head over to Instagram and check out that page, there are some fire kicks on there, amongst other stuff. It is a local Black entrepreneur who's looking to make an impact. So our first ever sponsor on Technically Diverse, I just, a little clapping motion here is Aiden Steels. So go ahead and check out that page. I want to thank you all for coming together again. The Quadcast crew is strong as always. I think today was such a great discussion. We covered a variety of topics. I just want to wish you all the best for the week. We're still under the pandemic, so mask up, stay safe. Hopefully, there'll be vaccines, rolled out so that we can get together. I miss you all dearly. And to all our listeners, stay safe, mask up, live long and prosper. Thanks for joining us this week.
This has been the Technically Diverse podcast. Remember to hit subscribe on whichever app you prefer to get your podcasts. You can also connect with us on various social platforms. On Twitter, you can follow us at Technically D. On Instagram, you can follow us at Technically Diverse. Or if you prefer to watch, subscribe to our YouTube channel that shares the same name, Technically Diverse. We also love getting feedback and ideas, so if there's anything you'd like to see, you can send us an email to technicallydiverse@gmail.com.